Welcome to SportX, where we talk all things relating to the ever-evolving business of sport and the people that makes things happen in this vibrant industry. I'm Gerard Davids, founder of TalkX TV, where we host SportX as a content channel. And today I'm joined by Sarah Mundy, founder and owner of an agency called the Project Brand, which is a bespoke and agile sports marketing agency and is currently contracted as a freelancer to Adidas Head Office as the global communication lead for running. Welcome to SportX, Sarah. And let's start off by describing what is it that you do in the sports business industry?
So firstly, thank you so much for having me, Gerrit. I really appreciate the opportunity. So what do I actually do in the sports industry? Well, pretty much everything, if I'm honest with you. I think I'm very fortunate from the exposure that I've had at my time with South African Rugby Union. But I'd have to say I'm obviously a consultant at the moment, and I have a diverse portfolio of high-profile clients. As you've mentioned, obviously Adidas is one, where I'm currently contracted to them now, leading the global category comms for running, which is absolutely super exciting and fantastic. But I've also done some work with Team Jota, which is the racing team, a strong British racing team here in the UK. And then currently working with OFX, which is obviously a foreign exchange currency, and just helping build out their sports sponsorship portfolio. So my work really spans around the various aspects of sports marketing, together with strategic branding, communication, and then to some extent business development. So I think with the rich background, including some of my leadership roles that I've had at ASICS, with global experience in Tokyo, and then obviously my time where I headed up marketing for South African Rugby Union, I'm hoping that I can bring a wealth of experience and specifically a unique global perspective to any of the clients that I specifically work with. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. And then naturally, I love to integrate my personal passion for sport. I have completed all world marathon majors, which I think is obviously very fitting given the work that I have done with obviously ASICS and Adidas now currently. And then I'm also pursuing my challenge of hiking all the 7 summits. So fortunately, I've done Kilimanjaro and I've reached Base Camp Everest, but I'm hoping by the time I'm 50, I can get myself to the top.
Okay, great. So a typical day in the life of Sarah Mundy.
So a typical day in the life of Sarah Mundy. I mean, most people think I'm pretty crazy, but I do wake up at 4 a.m. I know most people probably wouldn't recommend that, but I think for me, it's just very, very important that I can set the base and the tone for my day, because I do feel like if I haven't been able to do certain things for myself, then obviously the day runs away with itself. So my day really starts in terms of me getting out and running and getting myself on the road as well. I just think it's a good place to get my headsets right, as well as obviously spending a little bit of time in the gym and then walking the dogs. And then I definitely have to say, like most people, I think the day obviously locks down with majority of key meetings with some of the clients, just unpacking where we are, whether it be from a production point of view across various shoots. We could be in the stages of where we're briefing in specific agencies around some core competencies that we're looking for. And then I'd say a lot of work is also spent around selling concepts into senior leadership teams, and obviously what we're hoping to achieve from a sports brand marketing perspective.
Yeah. So from where Sarah sits, and I don't want to sell it as the norm that we need to make special arrangement for women, because we know reality exists. There is a glass ceiling. And my next question is in terms of what is your view on how more women could be upskilled to enter the sports and marketing industry, in particularly with regards to what you do?
So I think for me here, it is quite an important one. I mean, I personally believe that obviously providing opportunities for skills development should really be inclusive to any individual, right? And just making sure that everyone has the chance to excel purely based on their abilities and their dedication. I think robust training programs is quite an important one that I think a lot of businesses obviously do, but just making sure that you can find the right competencies around that. Mentorship opportunities, I think that goes a long way, is just making sure you can identify core mentors that can obviously help you through your career development. And then obviously, I think initiatives that are very much progression related, right? So making sure that you can identify where you would like to go within a business, and then mapping out specifically, whether it be through the HR team as well as your a line manager, or if it's something personally for yourself, is just being very, very clear on what that initiative is, and then making sure that that's accessible for everyone. I personally believe that obviously fostering an environment where the best person for the job is selected is quite important, regardless of obviously background, and making sure that we can cultivate a diverse and high competent workforce. I believe in diversity of thought. I think that's quite a critical one, is that obviously thought is obviously quite an integral one in terms of bringing in new ideas and new ways of working and new ways of doing things. And that obviously is I think it's meritocratic approach that really ensures talent and hard work are the primary drivers of success in the industry. But I think if I had to speak specifically to women, if I'm honest with you, I think from a capability point of view, there's a lot of women out there that are currently in the industry and in the space already. I think the biggest thing that I would probably say is self-belief, is that you do deserve a seat at the table. You've got the knowledge, you've got the expertise, and I think it's just leaning into that and having that self-belief that you're more than capable.
So your background, your earlier career part of life, would you say that your qualifications, your education, and previous jobs kind of prepared you for what you're doing today?
For me personally, without a doubt. So I obviously studied sports management, which back in the day then was quite a relatively new qualification. And then I got myself locked down into some shadow work, if I'm honest with you. I remember doing some stuff with the All Africa Games and just getting myself into some of those niche environments and just throwing myself into some of that work. So personally, definitely, I think getting yourself involved at grassroots level is fundamental. I think that has been an absolute shift for me, specifically as understanding the basics of how the businesses are obviously run, whether it be from a team perspective, a brand perspective, and even from a commercial partnership perspective, is just having exposure to that. So that for me, I know, and everyone's journey is obviously specifically different, but that for me has obviously been a fundamental impact in terms of having opportunities within that space and getting my hands dirty. I think it's, sometimes you just got to put up your hand and be willing to be able to do some of the not glamorous things. But I sometimes always say you can go 2 steps back to go a couple of steps forward. And, if I look back at the history of my career, I've done a couple of those where I've been in either senior specific roles, but I know that I'm wanting to get somewhere else and I need some of that experience. And sometimes you got to take a step back to be able to move forward. And without a doubt, it's been fundamental in terms of shaping who I am and what I've been able to do.
No, great. So looking back at your own career path, and you use the word competency and competence a few times already. What advice would you give around that notion or that concept to someone much younger who are looking to enter this industry?
So I think for anyone who's wanting to enter the sports industry, and you've mentioned obviously competence, but I think competence comes with confidence, right? And confidence comes for me specifically around committing to continuous learning. So just making sure you stay hungry, and perhaps that sounds a little bit cliched, but I really believe if you're passionate about something and you're continuously hungry and willing to learn, that will open a vast number of doors. We all know that networking is obviously crucial. So that was obviously quite a big one for me specifically, and building strong relationships can open doors to various opportunities. And sometimes it's those relationships that you have where you least expect it that are the ones that actually open the specific doors. And then again, I think embracing the global nature of the industry. So where you can, try gain experience and understand diverse markets, because I think in today's globalistic world, I think things change quite substantially quickly. I think having global experience and some of those nuances would definitely be able to elevate someone's working career. And then adaptability is a big one, specifically in the sports industry. Gerrit, I mean, things change so quickly. You're working long hours, you're working the weekend, so it's not your normal traditional 9-to-5 job. So I think that adaptability is certainly something that will help people get really, really far in today's world. And then innovation, I think, in terms of the way that obviously your thinking is and staying up to speed with how the business constantly evolves with the new trends and technologies. And then
And
last but not least, I would definitely say finding a balance between professional and personal pursuits, because integrating your passions with your career can really, really lead to a successful and fulfilling journey.
that's great. That would have been my next question, Sarah. Having had the experience you bring to the table, and if any young person would have watched this interview, the advice you would give to them, striking a balance between uh, your life and your work commitments. What is a little bit of tip that you would give to them?
Sure. I would have to say carving some time out for yourself and making sure that if you are fortunate enough to have that balance. I absolutely love sports, so I'm fortunate enough that the time that I do spend on my off times is really integrated in and around a sporting environment, whether it be out being on the road, trekking some mountains, or not even just that, just listening into sport podcasts, such as yourself, and just garnering new and compelling bits of information. I think that for me is probably the most successful tip that I would be able to provide. But definitely carving time out for yourself. And sometimes, unfortunately, I know, when you have those long event weeks, or, you've got deadlines that you're working towards on a creative development within a project, is making sure that you get up early and you get to focus on what you can. Because I definitely think that having a balance is probably, without a doubt, one of the most important things that will help you fulfill your passion and your career.
Good
Not always
advice.
easy, but
No, go for it.
it's not always easy, I know, because there's deadlines and you needing to get things across to people and you're wanting to be able to sort certain things out, and then that's why I think it comes down to discipline. And sometimes it's just making sure that you can instill that discipline, not just in the work side, but also in your personal capacity too.
Good advice there, Sarah. Looking also back once again at your career, did you have official or unofficial mentors for that matter? And how do you view their importance?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. I think I've actually had both, if I'm honest with you. I mean, and to me, I think it is probably one of the most underestimated, but one of the most important things that people need, because they play a pivotal role in any form of career development. I mean, we know that they obviously provide guidance, support, and valuable insights that can help navigate your complexities of the industry. But I think most important is they can also offer perspectives based on their experiences. So, and help in setting career goals and providing constructive feedback. For me personally, I've definitely had a couple of key role models that I've met along my working career, and perhaps not necessarily even within the current job that I'm necessarily doing, but people that are on the outskirts. I do believe everyone has an opportunity to actually even mentor someone. I think it's the way you show up to a meeting, perhaps is a way that you can instill some learning in someone, or something that you can look back to, the way that you present, the way that you deliver your work. There's all different types of people that can obviously have a pivotal impact within your career. And then I also think sometimes we're not always fortunate enough to be surrounding ourselves with people that we can perhaps necessarily feel that we could perhaps look up to. And that's where I think leaning into external influences is probably also a good opportunity, and certainly something I've done before in the past, whether that be the form of, podcasts or people that I really, really aspire to, would like to obviously live up to. I definitely tap into that. And that's not just in a sports space, if I'm honest with you. I think from a leadership perspective, there's so many amazing leaders out there that might not necessarily be within the sports landscape, but the overarching messages are still the same in terms of how you can obviously lead and manage teams, and not just teams specifically, but lead and manage yourself, which is equally as important.
Yeah, no, good. So essentially, if I were to bring a 5-year-old to this conversation, and she would ask, now, Sarah, what is marketing and communications in the sports industry? Because perhaps if you convince me, I would perhaps aspire to become like you one day.
Sure. I mean, it's such a basic question, but it's such a nuanced one almost. I would have to say sports marketing, if I had to explain it to a 5-year-old, is the opportunity to share sports in the most compelling and inspiring storytelling aspect out there to be able to motivate individuals and to be able to buy and sell products that help individuals. I think that's what's one of the most beautiful things about the sports industry, if I'm honest with you, is we all know that sports keeps people off streets. It's probably one of the biggest things that transcend race, culture, and age.
Yes.
I think than any other business portfolio out there. And then being fortunate enough to be able to work with products that perhaps enable people to be able to participate in sports, whether that be in a professional capacity, but then obviously also in their own personal capacity. Yeah. I think I've confused a 5-year-old.
Yeah. No, good. Also being very involved in the sports industry, in the segment, what you do, any campaigns that is standing out for you with regards or around the Olympics?
So at the moment now, I know Adidas specifically, we're in the running space, and we've obviously just there's a spike that we've launched, which Noah Lyles has obviously run in, and that's not something that's been a predominantly massive big campaign. If anything, it's been a tiny little campaign because there's not much that you can talk about from an Olympic point of view, given Rule 40. I think the biggest thing around the Olympics is all around the activations and the houses that the teams do specifically around their athletes and really just nurturing them. But from a communications point of view, it is a challenge. There is Rule 40. So not much can be said in and around that from a commercial aspect. So a little bit challenging for brands to get themselves around.
Yeah. So Rule 40 is the limitation placed on athletes to endorsements. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So where you sit, what are the biggest trends emerging on the horizon and the idea around staying on top of the game?
So I think one of the we all know probably the biggest trends are obviously the increase in integration of technology and data analytics, which obviously ultimately drives performance and fan engagement. That's the one aspect. And then I would definitely have to say the rise of esports and virtual sports is really creating new opportunities and revenue streams and opening up a whole other channel there within the sports industry. AI is another big one. I know when it comes down to product photography and the way that we can integrate AI into any of our creative outputs, that is something specifically that we're all necessarily looking into. And then a big hot topic at the moment, which everyone is talking about, is sustainability. It really is a critical focus, not just with organizations having a eco-friendly practice and around products, but I specifically see in the sports industry as well, sustainability goes right down to in terms of how we even do production shoots on any of our creative campaigns that we're developing. So it really is something that I think has become quite a hot topic at the moment. And then again, there's definitely a growing emphasis around mental health and the well-being for athletes. And I think from a diversity and inclusion initiatives, there's a lot of momentum going on there. So there's so many different trends that are emerging, that are shaping at the moment, that reflect broader societal changes. And these obviously are more innovative, inclusive, and perhaps a lot more responsible in terms of how we as a collective focus on the future for the sports industry.
Yeah, thanks. I guess, the science of marketing and communications is quite an established conversation. And the new conversation that we have to have is environmental, social, and governance, ESG, that even leads into procurement, as you said,
100%.
as well as safeguarding and mental welfare of the athletes. And perhaps that's a different conversation for us sometime in the future, Sarah, because it is something that's close to my heart, the ESG and the procurement side of things, and how sport can play a bigger role in sustainability. Thank you for coming along and to do the interview. That was Sarah Mundy, founder and owner of the Project brand, and she's also a freelancer at Adidas Head Office as the global communication lead for running. Thank you for your time and insights, which is very much appreciated. That is where we would leave it for now. And thank you for watching What I Do in Sport on the SportX channel, which is hosted on TalkX TV. Until next time.